Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
It's March Mania at Sports Interaction. NHL, NBA, March Madness, MLB, and so much more. It's bananas. Play Pinata Picks and Minute Madness, exclusive games with insane odds you can't play anywhere else. Make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Download the app in Ontario using the QR code on your screen, or head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. It's always fun to see a team you cheer for play so well against. Without a doubt, I think for the first time in a while we have, in several seasons anyway, we have a for sure best team in the league. Not even 2 weeks after losing 5-0 to Chicago, 5-2 to Vancouver, and 5-1 to Calgary. So look at me, I'm already finding a way to get upset about things. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Game Over Ottawa, and I am very happy to be joined by, God, I don't even know how to start your resume, man. Anyway, we're joined by Toogie24. We'll say Twitch streamer, YouTuber, esports commentator, like host of the Toogie's Take podcast. If you got like 5 more for me to add, I'll happily throw them in the mix.
I'm terrible about taking any sort of praise, so feel free to stop there. It's perfectly fine.
All right. Well, so Toogie, you are on the show because you're a Bruins fan, and one of the very few Bruins fans well, this is actually the first time we're ever speaking to each other. But you're one of the very few, and I'm probably outing myself as a hater here, one of the few Bruins fans I like not only tolerate but enjoy listening to. So we'll get into the game here momentarily, but you know, I need to ask, what is it like watching a historic season unfold for the team you cheer for? Because like I can't even begin to like imagine what that's like.
I have been trying to wrestle with my thoughts on this Bruins season all season long, because heading into this season, you expected them to be good. They get David Krejci back. You know, they, of course, brought in Hampus Lindholm for last season, even though, as I've always said, I think they needed someone like Max Domi more last season, but then getting Lindholm for this season has been amazing. It's just been one of those things, and excuse me, I'm getting over a cough, but it's just been one of those things where I've tried to enjoy it, but we have been so spoiled as Boston sports fans that we have been conditioned to know that it can be as good as it possibly can be in the regular season, but if you fall short, you're going to be more remembered for falling short than you are it going to be an historical season. Primary example, the 2007 New England Patriots. Nobody remembers an undefeated season. They just remember them losing in the Super Bowl. So I have been trying on a game-by-game basis to enjoy every second of this season. At the same time, am I kind of scared of them getting Blue Jackets like the Tampa Bay did a couple of years ago? A little bit. I'm going to be very nervous for that first playoff series, no matter who it is. But it's been great, but more stressful than it probably should be. But
right. So are you Boston teams across the board?
Yeah.
All
Sorry,
right.
but yes.
I hate it and I'm jealous.
Yeah.
So all right, we'll talk about this game because first
one
of all,
thing really quickly.
Sure.
I am paying attention to the chat. And Aaron, here's the thing. Who sunk the Boston Bruins against the Carolina Hurricanes in the playoffs last season? Who scored that series clinching goal? Max Domi. There you go. Anyway, continue, my friend.
So, I understand your point about finding a way to be nervous. It has that game by game, and in a game like this where maybe there's nervousness just in the fact that like best case scenario against the Ottawa Senators of all teams is an even season record. So do you find is there any anxiety in that going into this game, or have things eased since you cheer for a team that clinched a playoff spot with a quarter of the season to go, plus 100 points in whatever it was, 61 games, I think. Like,
Yeah.
are we at the point now where, I mean, maybe even like regardless of who the opponent is it now at a point of like, okay, all I have to worry about is injuries, or is it still like a game by game, like, oh, this bad shift by, I won't even say bad shift by Pasternak, I don't think he has that in him, like this bad shift by whoever, that has me worried, and then they look fine the next shift. Or I don't know, because like that's how my brain works whenever I'm watching a team that is at all competitive that I cheer for. So I managed to find a way to make everything about a game for me a nervous wreck.
I mean, it's still, it is still that, because you kind of mentioned for the Bruins not all that long ago, they're under the microscope if they start to slip, and I don't envy the
Right.
position that the team is in for that reason.
Yeah.
Earlier this month, they lost to Edmonton, Detroit, and Chicago. 3 out of their 4 games they ended up losing, especially that Chicago loss. People are looking at them like, oh, okay, like, is this the time where right before the playoffs they start to slip? And now they've won 4 straight games after that, after tonight. But yeah, I mean, it is definitely that, right? Again, when they're under the microscope to that level, anytime you start to have like a perceived effort slip, it's going to be kind of rough, and especially against a team like Ottawa, where, I mean, I don't know. I guess some people, it's like, oh, division rival. I have nothing against the Sens, though. If anything, I'm very much rooting for the Sens. I do have a bit of a soft spot for them. Obviously, I think, you guys for the longest time kind of had that attention of Eastern Conference final run. Sorry to bring that up. And then not being able to follow that up because of ownership shortcomings, not to speak ill of the dead.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it's definitely one of those things where it's just like, it was so great over last year and especially this year to see them improve, and on paper to look so good. And then for tonight, the thought was, okay, they're heading into this game. They played in Pittsburgh last night. I do want to call it relatively close, but not really, because I feel like the Sens, I watched a lot of that game. I do feel like the Sens controlled most of that game. But it's just one of those things where heading into it, it's like, okay, I'm not really rooting for the Bruins to hurt Ottawa's playoff chances, more so than I'm like, well, I don't want my team to lose, but hey, it'd be interesting if the Sens were to win this and keep that Eastern, wild card playoff race alive. But definitely with the effort level that the Sens had for Pittsburgh, I was wondering if they could keep that up heading into this game, and we will talk about it. In terms of teams on a back-to-back and effort levels, I don't know if I've seen someone or like a team collectively have as much effort as the Sens did tonight. And it makes me wonder, if they didn't play the night before, if we'd be talking about a little bit of a different result.
Yeah, I think to put it into perspective, on last night's show with my co-host Mod, we were talking about like what are our expectations for the game against the Bruins, and I said, listen, they just gave up like 50 shots tonight against the Penguins. They're probably gassed. Um, if they lose by 2, I'm thrilled. So, I am so happy with the effort level on this game. I'm really really impressed by it. I will say that it is a bit of a bummer that I think the game winning goal was on an iffy penalty call against Tim Stützle. That said, the Sens did not convert on a bunch of chances that they probably should have. They had a lot of opportunities. We're at a strange, I don't know if you've been looking at special team rankings
Mhm.
throughout the season all that much, but yeah, like the Sens started out horrible power play, and then the power play on fire, which was great because the team did not know how to score 5-on-5, and now the Sens for about a month, 5 or so weeks now, can only score 5-on-5. The power plays just disappeared. So I do want to like also touch on that just in general about like how do I put it, like You can play. I think the Sens are poised to be, if they make the playoffs. I think they're in a great position to play spoiler against someone. But like when you're either scoring on the power play or 5-on-5, not both, like you're never going to make it too far. Especially when you're down to, the Sens today played their third string goalie and they had to scratch their fifth string goalie because he played last night. So their fourth guy was called back up. So like it's a rough situation, and that's why myself and a lot of the Sens fans are maybe it's coping, but I think we really do believe that next year is the year. Um, it makes it tough, like I said, that rough road trip, right? Like where they just lost a bunch of super winnable games, but it's games like this against the Bruins that kind of give me some hope.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, the effort level for the Sens was just there throughout pretty much the entire game. Like, yeah, third period, they didn't get that many
Yeah.
shots, and the Bruins started to kind of get that momentum going again. But yeah, like you said, I don't view it as like coping or excuses. I mean, it's a viable thing to say when you head into this season expecting your goaltending tandem to be Forsberg and Talbot, and now all of a sudden here you are in March. Sogard playing is not that surprising, but the fact that you guys have had to play Kevin Mandolese and now Dylan Ferguson, if you were to miss out on the playoffs, then yeah, it's understandable in that set of
Yeah.
circumstances. So I wouldn't call it coping. I mean, God, missing out on I mean, their number one center in Josh Norris for all of what 7, 8 games. I don't quite remember the exact amount. I mean,
He
yeah,
played, I think he played 5 and came back for, yeah, like 6.5, I guess.
yeah.
About that, yeah.
So
So
that's just one of those things where, if they fall short, which it's looking like they might, I don't feel like Sens fans are wrong for thinking that next year is the year that they get back into the playoffs. I mean, especially like I know there's been a lot of conversations about DJ Smith. I mean, there were conversations about him when he was with the Leafs as to whether or not, he was head coach
right.
material. But in terms of a team showing up and giving a really strong effort level, you'd like to think like, okay, you maintain that effort level, our goaltending stays healthy, and then we have the star players next year. I mean, DeBrincat will likely feel more comfortable. Tim Stützle, I mean, if there was a breakout player award in terms of, okay, you're someone who's been in the league already, it's not quite rookie of the year, but you're someone who on paper, you've taken that next step forward. Tim Stützle's taken 2 or 3 steps forward by that logic this
Yeah.
year. So I fully agree. Like you guys have all the reason in the world to feel confident as Sens fans next season.
Yeah, I think that I honestly like I think Forsberg makes for, as far as like a playoff team goes, I think Forsberg would make a great like a 1B kind of goalie. I don't know if I'd want to rely on him completely for 60 plus games. Apparently Talbot's made it known he doesn't want to come back to Ottawa. So um, goaltending, bit of a question mark going into next season. But yeah, I think a full season of Josh Norris, knock on wood. Um, Zub not getting hurt 3 separate times throughout the season, knock on wood. Like I think there are, some reasons to be hopeful for next season. Um, and yeah, I think tonight's a little glimpse into what can possibly be next year if everything clicks. That said, I do want to come back to the Bruins for a bit because the Bruins as a team confuse me. So the Bruins have only missed the playoffs twice since 07-08
Yes.
in the back-to-back years of the mid 2010s. So the Bruins have and
I
and
think it was back-to-back seasons the Sens ended their official chances at the playoffs too, if I'm not mistaken.
that sounds right.
I think it was.
Yeah. Um, so the Bruins only missed the playoffs twice since 07-08. And then it was just, yeah, I think it was 2015 and 16.
Yep.
So yeah, 2015 is when they did the little retool there, moved some guys out, had, listen, Jake DeBrusk is good. Jake DeBrusk undoubtedly good.
The second you say 2015 to
Well,
a Bruins fan, I mean,
yeah.
it's just.
Well, I
It's
have to
over at
touch
that
on it
point.
because the Bruins, for the first time in nearly a decade, are looking questionable. And then they have what is probably one of the biggest fuck ups in recent draft history, at least in the last couple decades. 3 early first round picks. Listen, DeBrusque is good, but there's arguments to be made about several players picked later in that first round who most teams would probably want more than him, right?
I should have known you were going to go this direction once the Sens lost tonight. By the way,
But this is the thing, though. But this is the thing. They were never that bad. The 2 seasons they missed the playoffs, they had at least 93 points.
Yeah.
And then, that's the thing. The Bruins get 96 points. Oh no, better retool. Nuts. Botched the draft. Missed the playoffs again with 93 points. Okay. And then fast forward 7.5 years later, and now on a historic friggin' season with another Stanley Cup final appearance in there since that draft. Like
nice
so
here, buddy.
I'm just, listen, no, listen.
I know you're talking about it from a
I'm
positive
jealous
perspective.
I'm jealous of this, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is, you know what, so can you take me through what made the retool work when clearly at least drafting at that point and those trades probably didn't so much? Like, why is it that this team, what is it about this team that makes them so good consistently? And you can say it's just Patrice Bergeron, I'd understand.
That's where I was going to go with this. Actually, was Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand being two. Okay, so I don't know if I'll get heat for saying this. Patrice Bergeron's a generational talent in terms of he has, and there have been other elite two-way forwards. It's a shame Mark Stone doesn't have a Selke. Anze Kopitar could have more. Is there a team in the league that would say no, with the exception of Edmonton? No, we wouldn't have won. Even then, who wouldn't have wanted Patrice Bergeron as their 1C for the duration of Bergeron's career? You know? So I don't know. Maybe generational is too strong if we want to say, well, that's reserved for Crosby, McDavid. Fine. But it's Patrice Bergeron getting paid peanuts and Brad Marchand also making half, almost close to half of what he could be making.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Yeah. And Pasternak being on what is going to be another sweetheart deal. That's
the biggest thing that they had. Through draft screw ups and everything like that. And even to that Max Domi point from last year, just to mention that, in no way do I think Max Domi is a superior player, but the Bruins have had that ability to, be able to spread the wealth around the lineup throughout the years because of those cheaper contracts. And that was one of those things where it's like, okay, defensively, when's the last time you really recall the Bruins being all that bad defensively? It probably was those 2 seasons that they missed. Even last year, they weren't that bad defensively. They still go out and get Hampus Lindholm. And now again, this season, he has been one of the best defenders in the NHL, depending on, what metrics you prefer. But yeah, it comes down to Bergeron, Marchand, David Pasternak's deal looking amazing. Again, he's going to be going from essentially 6.7 to 11 and a quarter, and people are still saying he's on a steal no matter what. And I tend to agree with those people. So yeah, I have to give the majority of the credit to just the star players taking those cheaper deals and allowing the Bruins to kind of fill out that lineup a little bit more throughout the season.
Man, I got my fingers crossed with new ownership that Ottawa is finally going to be a place where players want to take the discount and stick around. That's a whole other thing too. So, yeah, I will say that I am a little split on this game, just partially because it is playoff season in fantasy hockey, and I'm a genius. And my last pick on one of my teams. Actually, well, both my teams are in first right now, but my final pick on one of my teams was Ullmark, and what the hell is going on, man? Everyone, that's the thing. Everyone knows that Ullmark was solid coming into this season. There was no doubt, solid goalie, but everyone had the 1A, 1B in mind, right? With him and Swayman, it was going to be, if they didn't split the season evenly, it was going to be just a fight for, who's going to be the starter in the playoffs. How? Okay, so this is a bad question because you've got to see Tim Thomas at his best, and then Tuukka Rask And then I don't even know what my question. When
I
is
feel
Boston
bad
not?
because that you're
When is
just
Boston not going to have a phenomenal goalie? Because like, what the like? What's like? Why? I mean, there are some franchises that just always right. The
Mhm.
Rangers, the Bruins. I mean, like those are probably the two most the teams that consistently have like arguably the best goalie at any point. So I have no idea what the Bruins like coaching staff is for outside of who's standing on the bench most of the time, right? Like, has there been a consistent goalie coach for a long time that you know of? Like, is it what's the deal with Bruins and having great goalies?
well, I'll say this in terms of the whole great goalie deal. Like, if you look at those post '05 lockout teams, there was some weird moments there with Minnesota Wild legend Manny Fernandez.
Right,
Marty Turco was a Boston Bruin. Like there were some weird times in terms of that, but yeah,
right.
obviously once Tim Thomas went on his run, I mean that was kind of signed, sealed, delivered. I'm glad you talked positively about Tuukka Rask because it's something that a lot of people within Boston don't
Is it?
still.
I don't know what's weirder
Um,
between that or the Luongo haters in Vancouver. Like,
mm,
neither one made any sense to me at any point.
yeah, but Andy in
So
chat
strange.
mentioned it. Their goalie coach since '03, I want to say '03, '04, has been
Wow.
former NHLer Bob Essenza. He has been there ever since, and yeah, I mean the
He knows what
guy's a
he's doing.
wizard. Essentially, I mean, again, like obviously, it's that mix of goalie coaching versus the talent themselves, and where that line is.
Yeah.
Um, I've it's funny. I actually put more value into goalie coaches being a part of the equation after Eddie Lack went to Carolina, and I got to witness a lot of Canucks fans, um, saying that, hey, Carolina should fire their goalie coach because Eddie Lack isn't this bad. But yeah, ever since then, I did actually start to put a little bit more focus on goalie coaches. And yeah, Bob Essence has been there the entire time, and it's like he was a decent NHLer. I mean, mostly through the '80s and '90s, but just one of those guys where it's like, okay, solid NHL career, and then yeah, you're able to just turn that into a coaching career. That I mean, again, it's been almost 20 years now as the Bruins goalie coach, and yeah, he's been a pretty constant thread.
Yeah. I imagine the all caps WTH man is directed at me for not knowing Boston's goalie coach. Hi, host of an Ottawa Senators show.
Yeah.
So, that said, Ottawa, who's had such stars as Pascal Leclerc and Brian Elliott before he was good. Um, so,
Razor Ray Emery.
oh,
Gotta,
hey,
gotta give a
like,
shout out to Razor.
yeah, gotta love Ray Emery. Gotta love him. Unfortunate it didn't work out
Hmm.
in Ottawa. That's a whole other story. But yeah, would have loved
Well,
to see
I
that
mean,
been like you know
to your point, like that's a part of the reason as to why the Andrew Hammond story was so crazy. It's not just like, oh, here's this goalie doing what he's doing. He's doing it for Ottawa. We might actually have a goalie. Was
that's
kind of the
yeah
sense that I got from Sens fans at the time.
yeah. Other than I mean, you can look back at the point where at one point the Sens had prime Craig Anderson, Robin Leonard, and Ben Bishop all on the roster, and just didn't go anywhere.
You got club legend Corey Conacher for Ben
Oh, I
Bishop
was
there,
just
didn't you?
about to, yeah, for that. He looked half decent in one playoff round where they beat the Habs, and that's about it.
For the record, I don't know if any other game over tonight is going to be mentioning Manny Fernandez and Corey Conacher. So I feel like the people that tuned in, you made the right choice.
Weirdly enough, I think Corey Connors come up on this show like at least four times,
I'm
which
happy.
is
I'm
wild.
happy. I'm happy
Yeah,
for that.
honestly, well, so my there was a game. I think it was one of the Habs games where my co-host and we just did not feel like talking about the game, and so we just
Mm.
spent the whole. I made this game where I just give you a jersey number and you have to tell me the most obscure Ottawa Senator to wear that jersey number, and we put our answers against it. It was a good time, and
Mm.
I can sit here and just talk about obscure hockey players for hours.
Yeah, same.
So it's a good time. Um, Yeah, Corey Conacher, love that dude. Okay, so you're a Jersey guy.
Yes.
Well, look at the background. Known
Hmm.
for a long time, you're a Jersey guy. Um, let's just get real mad. With the announcement that the NHL is moving on from Adidas, or I think it was no, it's Adidas moving on from the NHL. I think
Hmm.
because I'm pretty sure it was Adidas who said, "Nah, we're good."
Yeah.
So the NHL signing, I believe it's a 10-year deal with Fanatics to be the
Hmm.
official supplier manufacturer of NHL jerseys. So what I'll just say everything I know, and then I'll let you just run with it. So I know that they are taking over the same uh, plant factory, whatever you want to call it, that Adidas was using before. So I have few issues with what I expect the on ice product to be. I think the jerseys that the players are going to have are probably fine, but with good reason. Everyone is real nervous about the apparel, about the jerseys, and anything from hoodies and t-shirts that will be available to the general public because the NHL doesn't like selling the official jerseys. So I think I don't. So I'd love to hear any horror stories you maybe have with Fanatics products,
Well,
or if there's any reason that maybe you're balling out and you have been specifically just buying the authentic replicas, and talk about why that's the case.
it's just yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and say that every jersey I own is the made in Canada top of the line. What but at
Right.
the same time, I'm a fan of the in between, depending on the jersey. I do not have a Fanatics branded jersey. Obviously, for a casual hockey fan that wants a jersey, it is a good option because you're not going to care too much about the details. For the next two lines up, I mean, yeah, in terms of quality, it's just not going to compare. You mentioned that they're keeping the same factory, which is great. But in terms of the idea of, well, the Fanatics brand, they're set up for success. I don't care because I still don't trust them. In terms
Okay.
of
Yeah.
quality control, they have given no reason for anybody, whether or not it's with a jersey, a hat, a t shirt, to have any confidence in their quality control and what they're going to be able to provide. So it is one of those situations where it's like, okay, you got to prove yourselves at this point. Like, there's a reason why the reaction to this news was so negative. We'll see kind of what happens now moving forward. But yeah, for me in the short term, I'm like, oh, good. I don't have to worry about buying any more jerseys anytime soon. My bank account's going to be feeling pretty good. Um, no temptation's a great thing. But yeah, all in all, my hope is that they do take that step up and that rightful fear that the community has right now in regards to this is proven to, I mean, it's never going to be proven to have been incorrect, but, we're proven to be winning, won over, I should say. And it's a winning situation for them as we go down the line. But yeah, I was not all that happy waking up to that news because it was kind of the nightmare scenario in terms of so many other options that were out there uh, for the NHL to go with, and the fact too that it's a 10-year deal. That's
Yeah.
so NHL for it to be a 10-year deal. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I am a general sports fan in terms of yes, I have interest in the NBA, MLB, the NFL. I don't recall these leagues necessarily signing 10-year long sponsorship agreements or manufacturing agreements. It just seems like such a Gary Bettman in the NHL thing to do to make these long term commitments, just like they did with NBC. Again, like there were people joking, like, this is the NHL on Versus uh, jersey deal rather than a television deal. So I don't know. Jury's out. Obviously, we'll see. But yeah, I am very much on the side of not having much confidence. But the good thing is I can look over to this rack of 60, 70 some odd jerseys and the one behind me and say, hey, you know what? I'm good. I don't really even need any more. It's fine. There are more that I want, but I'm good for now in case it does end up being as negative as we might think.
Yeah, so for me, I don't have too many jerseys, and they're almost purely all Sens jerseys. My issue is more so with, okay, so like say everything works out fine. I don't know if anyone knows any information on this as well, but typically when it moved over to Reebok and then when it moved over to Adidas, there were slight uniform changes as far as like what every jersey has as far as a basic template. I don't know if anyone's heard anything about what
I don't
if there's any plans on that happening with
I don't think
this.
so. Was the word, at least not for a couple of years
Okay.
into the deal, which a lot of Ducks fans were upset about, at least for the ones who were tired of the big webbed foot, and
Yeah.
other teams as well, I think, that had their hopes up for a rebrand.
Because my issue is, and I don't know, I might be in the minority here, but my big problem with the Adidas jerseys where I hate the bib. I hate the really thick collar. I
Mm.
don't know. Again, I haven't talked to enough people about this. I don't know if I'm the minority on that or what the deal is. I've always loved like a thinner, like the kind of the
Yeah.
Reebok looking, or there. I mean, there are teams that also just like have made a point of, yeah, like what the jersey you're wearing, it's got it, but like there's a point of some of the collar is a different color and thinner looking. I don't know. That's my one gripe with the new Sens jerseys is how thick the collar is, but. And that's
Not as
possibly partly why I haven't bought a new one yet. But
not as bad as Chicago when Reebok was first a thing and they had the big white all around pilgrim collar. That was a fun
yeah,
time.
yeah. So I don't know if there's gonna be many changes made. Sound like you said. I guess sounds like there's probably gonna be minimal changes made other than the quality maybe.
Yeah.
Um, so what happens like because I don't know, maybe like some people who have been buying NHL merch for years, maybe they're immediately going to be turned off by the idea. But for the more casual fans, it'll probably take a few really rough orders to really kick in. So say like how quickly after say 2 years down the line and jersey sales are really just hoodie sales whatever, just NHL merch in general, the sales have dropped off completely. Say that's what say things go exactly as poorly as so many people are imagining. How quickly does Bettman go, okay, we might need to find a new partner here? Like, is that even a thing that you would consider? Like,
I mean, I'm sure Fanatics as a brand wouldn't want to work a clause into the deal that says, hey, if we're not holding up our end of the
oh,
bargain, you
for
can bail
sure.
on us a quarter of the way through. But
Yeah.
I mean, hey, if you don't want that clause in, pay the NHL more money. And apparently, this was a good enough deal for the NHL to again lock in for 10 years, which that's scary.
I guess
That's
I
scary.
guess like
Man, I am in my 20s currently, and I will be rapidly approach. Well, I mean, technically, the deal doesn't kick in for what, a year, I think.
is it the
I'm gonna be
start of
pushing
next
40
season
by the
or
time
the
that deal is
following?
done. I'm scared. I'm scared.
Is that beginning 24, 25?
I can't remember exactly what the term was. I was reading the
Yeah.
article through
That
tears.
has God,
So
that has me upset now because
24, 25 is when they're going to be the on
yeah.
ice outfitter. So yeah, we'll
So
have
when they
a year and a
start,
half.
oh boy, I'll be a
Mm,
fresh I'll be a fresh 28 when that kicks in. So
well,
I'll be
sometimes
30. I'll be 38 by the time we get nice jerseys. Awesome. All right. So I guess I'll rephrase the question then. Over under on how many years until the NHL regrets that? Putting you on the spot.
it, oh, God, based on Fanatics' reputation right now, they should regret it already.
Yeah.
And if they only show slight improvement, it won't take long, 1 or 2 years for them to be like, "Yep, this is probably a mistake." But again, I'm hoping for the best. I'm not rooting for the
Oh,
quality of
for sure.
jerseys to
Yeah.
take a nosedive. But
We
again,
just have the
there's a
track
reason why
record
no
to
one has
look
that
at, right?
confidence. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So you heard it here first. Tugi puts the over under at 1.5. Uh,
As long as we have to wait for them to actually start is about how long afterwards they have until we expect it to go poorly.
yeah, well, we'll say 1.5 starting now. So
Oh,
let's see.
fair.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So we better wrap things up here before Zoom kicks us out. So all that to say, the Boston Bruins are a very good team. Boston in general has very successful sports teams, and I'm not at all jealous. And the Ottawa Senators are supposed to be better next season, but I don't know about you. But looking at the Atlantic Division still gives me it makes me upset. In general.
I mean, like I did want to say for the Sens though, it's like again they had the season lead heading into this game. They got off to a really good start, like energetic after playing the night before. I was very impressed with them on the penalty kill and their shot blocking efforts. Dylan Gambrell scored for the first time in almost 50 games, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, but
third line center quite often for some reason. You can't make the playoffs with third line center Dylan Gambrell.
Yeah, like just the biggest thing is like more experience in the Bruins lineup, more experience behind the bench in a way. I mean, Jim Montgomery called a timeout on that 5-on-3 power play.
That was
like
wild.
11 minutes into the game. Like the confidence that coaching staff has to make those ballsy calls has been a huge difference maker this year. So again, in general, and I get we kind of had more like general conversation instead of about the game this year, or for this, show, but it's just one of those things where this year, like I said, I am impressed by the Sens and the effort level. It's not as if they were terrible. Some Sens fans might have preferred that to get a higher draft pick. But it's one of those things where I do think they have, a good outlook, especially moving in the next season if they can stay healthy. It's just that, again, like case in point, third period, 6-on-4 power play as the game's winding down, and it's Marchand and Bergeron just dominating puck possession in those final, 90 seconds or so.
As they do, unfortunately, for Sens fans. All right, well, with that, we're going to call it here, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this for months. Since
it's over before it even started. I could have been here for another hour. It's a shame,
man. I'll have to. I'll bring you on again next year, man. Next season.
Once
that schedule's out, we'll figure out what days work for you, man. So thanks again for coming on. Thank you everyone for watching and listening, depending on which way you're doing that. If you're watching it, like the stream, click subscribe to SDPN, and if you're listening to it on Spotify, head over onto your phone or your laptop and go to SDPN and subscribe there too, because I asked very nicely. So all right, folks, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.